with Ellen DeGeneres with another emotional apology to her staff in a video conference call. This as 3 top producers, all accused of sexual misconduct, are ousted from the show.
Ellen DeGeneres has been under a lot of fire recently for accusations made about her show. Her executive producers as well have come under fire for a multitude of claims that have painted the whole workplace as toxic, racist, and more. An internal investigation was launched, and now there's been at least some backlash for the accusations that have been filed at them. Allow us to show you who got fired and what it means for Ellen's show going forward. And as always, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 7, the setup. Before we get into details of the firing and what the fallout of that might be, we need to first spell out the crimes of the men who created such a buzz about Ellen's show. You see, at first, everything that was really said about Ellen's talk show was about her personally, how she treated the staff, how she was a person who wouldn't give them their earned pay because of the global lockdown, and so on and so forth. But eventually, it was revealed that it was 3 of her executives / senior producers that were also in on this in their own way. Plus, they honestly did it worse because they were called out for discriminatory behavior, racist comments, and not being fair to those who called all of this out. Eventually, an expose was made on this, and the comments on it about Ellen and the producers were telling. That be kind bull only happens when the cameras are on. It's all for show, one former employee told BuzzFeed News. I know they give money to people and help them out, but it's for show. If she wants to have her own show and have her name on the show title, she needs to be more involved to see what's going on. I think the executive producers surround her and tell her things are going great, everybody's happy, and she just believes that. But it's her responsibility to go beyond that. Indeed it was, but that begs the question of what the producers were doing once again. In one case, a couple of African American women noted that the writers and producers were making racist jokes at their expense, and no one was sticking up for them. This show would also do some racist jokes or acts that could be construed as racist or demeaning, and one worker tried to get that worked out. Whenever I brought up an issue to my white male boss, he would bring up some random story about some random black friend that he had and how they managed to get over stuff, she said. He would use his black friend as some way to say, I understand your struggle. I feel angry about the way I was treated, and I'm always going to stand up for black, indigenous, Latino, and Asian people, regardless if they're around, she said. I can't not say anything, I'm not going to stop talking. And the accusations kept rolling in via that article, which prompted a response from Ellen's producers. Number 6, the apology. So after the BuzzFeed article came out, the main 3 producers of The Ellen Show released a statement, and here is what they said. Over the course of nearly 2 decades, 3,000 episodes, and employing over 1,000 staff members, we have strived to create an open, safe, and inclusive work environment. We're truly heartbroken and sorry to learn that even one person in our production family has had a negative experience. This statement read, it's not who we are and not who we strive to be, and not the mission Ellen has set for us. This statement continued, for the record, the day-to-day responsibility of the Ellen Show is completely on us. We take all this very seriously, and we realize, as many in the world are learning, that we need to do better, are committed to do better, and we will do better. If you hear the lack of empathy and lack of accepting responsibility, you're not alone. Because this quote apology reads of someone who is trying to use longevity via noting the length of the show's run so far to justify that this was an experienced team that knows how to treat people, which clearly it didn't. Furthermore, they only say sorry in terms of saying sorry to learn that someone has had a negative experience. It's Hollywood. There are going to be negative experiences, justified or not. So to blanket this by saying they are heartbroken that someone is having a bad experience on the show is ignoring the issue at hand. And notice that they don't talk about racism or discrimination or terrible treatment of the workers. They just say they're sorry to learn about these quote bad experiences and then try to shift blame away from Ellen, who, as noted earlier, has her own role to play in all of this. So the question then became, what is going to happen now? Number 5, the firing. Well, now we know exactly what is happening, because Warner Bros. Has announced, at least in part, what they're going to do with the show. A spokesperson for Warner Bros. Confirmed that the show has parted ways with executive producer Ed Glavin and Kevin LeMan, and co-executive producer Jonathan Norman. Why is that significant? Well, they were 3 producers that were labeled in the BuzzFeed article for their terrible behavior behind the scenes, including some that went beyond what we outlined earlier. What's more, it was noted that they weren't just let go from Ellen's talk show, but some were a part of her other show, Games of Games, to help solidify the decision, which is a big move in its own right because it shows they're not just slapping them on the wrist, they're moving to get rid of them outright. Though it should be noted that all the men but one have outright denied all of these accusations, which should say a lot, honestly. Number 4, so what now? That is the question. Because right now the Ellen DeGeneres show is in a bit of a sticky situation. Because while it's fair to say that this is a big move to try and fix the mistakes of the past, you have to wonder, is it enough? What's more? Can they do more? Warner Bros. Might be thinking of that honestly. In an email to staff, David Maguire, Executive Vice President of Programming at Warner Bros., said the studio was absolutely committed to change and a new culture. Many of you have spoken with Warner Media's investigators, and we thank you for your honesty, he added. According to BuzzFeed News, I hope this note is another way we are showing our commitment to do better. Which we do know will mean more than you might think, because during a virtual meeting with staffs about the departures, Steven Twitch Boss, the resident DJ on the Ellen DeGeneres show, has been named a co-executive producer on the show. So in essence, he's being promoted, which is both appropriate as all the producers were white before, and yet curious, especially since Steven only talked lightly about these allegations and said he had love for Ellen. So is this hiring a PR move? Is it based on his loyalty to Ellen and the show? Or is it because he's truly ready/worthy to be more than the DJ on the show? Right now, we don't know, and it gets a little more interesting if you can believe it. Number 3, results of the investigation. So given that there were major firings and promotions amongst the staff at Ellen, you'd think that this would mean that the various accusations that were lobbied against these producers were proven correct, right? Here's the thing though, according to Variety, there's a little more to this than you think in terms of internal investigation going on. After interviewing more than 100 people connected to the talk show, it found that there was no evidence of, quote, systemic racism on the show, the outlet reported. However, it was acknowledged that more needed to be done as far as diversity and inclusion. There are many things to take away from that tidbit. First off, 100 people were interviewed, but given that many of these complaints were from staff over the years, you have to wonder which 100 people were interviewed. Second, the systemic racism line is very curious, because the complaints weren't about the show being all racist, but rather the executive producers being racist, discriminatory, and treating employees like dirt, as well as Ellen not doing her job as a boss in keeping everything fair and safe and fun. The diversity and inclusion mentions are fair because many workplaces, especially in Hollywood, need that. And as noted, the producers let go were all white males, and now Steven Boss, who is African American, is co-executive producer. So that is a good start. But still, you have to wonder if some of these results were tailored in a way or curbed so that the result could paint a certain picture and lead to a certain result. In this case, the producers being scapegoated, as one of their lawyers said in a statement, and the show seemingly being allowed to stay on air, which is curious for all sorts of reasons. Mainly because, number 2, does this mean Ellen gets off unscathed? Easily one of the biggest questions when all of this started was, would Ellen be cancelled? What might have started as a mean joke via cancel culture, but it soon became a very real question as more and more people started to reveal stories about her. From her time in Australia where she tried to control a show she was a guest on, to her bullying an 11-year-old during her early days, and even getting her staff to not look at her or be in the same room with her while she was on the set of her talk show. The more people spoke out, the more it became very clear that the version of Ellen DeGeneres that we've seen on TV is not the Ellen that is real, which was confirmed by her ironically a few years ago, but not to this degree. Ellen has apologized multiple times for what has happened on her watch and that she's not perfect. But again, that's not the claim. The claims against her were that she treated staff members like peasants, that she would incite rivalries for fun, and that she hired non-union workers at times to not pay her dedicated staff. These are the claims people want justice for, but will we get that? It's hard to say. Number 1, the next couple months. With the investigation being closed and things seemingly dying down at least in part, the next several months for Ellen and her show will be critical for various reasons. Warner Bros. Clearly doesn't want to cancel the show, and thus they're going to be working overtime to not just deal with the global lockdown, but also making sure Ellen and her brand of Be Kind is something that is actually shown and capitalized on so that people forget and forgive what has happened. Will that work? It's hard to say in today's culture, especially one that is fighting for equal rights and treatment for all. They've taken steps, and that should be praised. But is it enough steps? You decide. And there you have it, everyone, a look at the role the producers played in creating a toxic workplace environment on the Ellen DeGeneres show and how things might just play out from here now that the 3 main executive producers are gone. Do you think that things will get better from here? Or does this really end with Ellen's show getting canceled because of all the things that she and her producers did? Let me know in the comments down below, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.